All right, welcome back to In His Mind. I gotta say, it's been quite the day releasing 4 videos, or rather, recording 4 videos, because they're not all going to be released at the same time. It's not something I've ever done before. It has been a very interesting and eventful day, and I admit a little unnerving and racking, just because of some of the things that I've learned. Now, I'm going to be calling this segment Unclean Spirits. And I think this matters just because, at least for me, it matters. But for others, if you're not sure if something's demonic or not, there are some things to note. And one of them is like, what direction are they trying to push you in, or what direction are they coming from? As far as if there is opposition to what is scriptural and in the Bible, any sort of opposition against Jesus, you can kind of tell this is like a demonic spirit, not like an unclean spirit. Now, it's saying here, as far as what I'm looking up, that unclean spirits are actually tied to. The difference between unclean and evil spirits is demonic possession. I'm thinking that is the only part, but I'm not going to say for sure because I do not know for sure. But that is definitely what it's saying here on Wikipedia. I am not a fan of Wikipedia, but if they're going to come up with an answer or something, it's worth mentioning. Straight up here on Google, it says, it can be difficult to distinguish between a demon and unclean or evil spirit in Judaic theology or contemporary scholarship. Both entities like to inhabit wild or desolate places. Commonly, the unclean spirit refers to dybuks, D-Y-B-B-U-K-S, spirits of deceased persons who were not laid to rest and thus became demons. I have no idea as far as how accurate any of that actually is. It is said that spirits of people who were deceased, they go to one place or the other. And the Bible talks about Sheol, the grave, about where people go, as far as like the bodies and all of that. Like, it is a resting place, possibly a holding place. And people fall under usual 2 camps there, as far as like we go straight up to heaven or we go to a holding place before we ultimately go either to heaven or hell. Sheol, I think, is more of a physical resting place. Physical resting place for the body, the human body. But there are questions there as far as that goes. I think it's also been said, and I'll repeat this from a previous video, it's been said that when Jesus died and he went down to hell, one of the things that he did there was release the captives who were waiting for a promised Savior. There's a reference to the keys of hell in close to or in that particular passage where he was talking about it. This matters in the sense that, well, this is getting a little off topic, but the grave is not the final resting place. It is not meant for us. Now, spirits of deceased persons who were not laid to rest and thus became demons. There's questions as far as that goes, simply because, like, the spirits of deceased persons, we don't know. There's no conclusive evidence as far as that happening, but it seems, from what I understand, that anything that resembles ghosts and all that is demonic. If it's not leading to or pointing to Christ, it is likely to be demonic. Dream in my life has challenged that in the sense of pretty much everything. Because, and this is kind of what unnerved me earlier, is the fact that there was a lot of similarities between the Ifrit that was talked about in the story and Dream. Cold, not caring. In the fact that he had his aura, his presence was one of fear. 6 years, it took me like 6 years to understand there was a other side of that with awe and respect, and that is partly what I was also feeling as well. the fact that he could disappear and reappear at will, the fact that there was a lot tied up with that. Except, the one main thing between him and the Ifrit that was talked about in the story was that he never tried to hurt me. I still want to mention that my parents prayed for me every day, and I think that had a major impact on it, and it's not something I ever recognized or realized. Prayer is like a shield in that sense. Protection matters. And if you want something that's cultural relevant, you could talk about the Harry Potter series with, the mother's love protecting Harry Potter from the killing curse. Abracadabra, I think. I'm not an expert when it comes to Harry Potter, but yeah. Prayer matters. Prayer changes. Prayer is needed. And there's a story that I'm recalling right now as far as hearing about this one guy. I want to say he's tied to a Christian organization. He was going into town for supplies, and two men, I guess, were in a fight or something, and he ended up getting there and helping one of them out. And I think, if I recall correctly, the two had ended up following him back, and since he had left late, he was camping out. And halfway across the world, this person who is tied to this individual through the same organization just got an urge to pray. So he gathered some other people, 8 other people, I think. It was 8 or 9 other individuals, and they prayed for this individual. And these two men were going to kill that man who had helped them earlier, but they saw these armed men standing around the guy who had helped him out. And so the next time, a month later, he was back in, he ran across the two guys, and they had approached him and asked him, who were those men that were with you? And the man was puzzled, because he's like, I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know. It was just me. So the men had seen angels, and the angels came as a response to prayer. Prayer, I think, is also a deciding factor as far as unclean spirits too. The whole, the name of Jesus, praying, this stuff matters. And I think that is a deciding factor between a lot of what happens and what could happen. Or another way to look at it is what happens and what doesn't. Is prayer involved? Are you running to Jesus? Or are you running to someone or something else? Jesus is the source of all of this. And as Jesus puts, he points to the Father. The Father's will is there. It's, he's the gateway to God. But ultimately, Christianity and all that revolves around Jesus. I'm not sure how that works out. I find that to be curious as to who goes to who and all that. But ultimately, Jesus is held up as our Savior, the one who we go to. And as far as condemnation and blame and all that, Jesus is the one whose image that we try to stand behind him so that the blame falls on him, not on us. Anyway, unclean spirits, I think, are tied to that. Okay. What makes a person unclean according to the Bible? Talks about, hey, whatever enters through you and then comes out. But it's what comes out of the heart, not necessarily from the mouth or whatever else. And it's talking about evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander, etc., etc. Greed, lust, this stuff matters. That probably is tied to it. Not entirely sure. Okay, let me see here. That is tied to the unclean thing in the Bible. What defiles a man is what comes out. What proceeds out of the heart. Evil thoughts and all that. Alright, the 7 types of spirits in the Bible, which is the opposite. The Spirit of the Lord, spirits of wisdom, of understanding, of counsel, of might and knowledge, and fear of the Lord. Fear of the Lord. If dream is a spirit a representation of fear of the Lord, that would make perfect sense. A lot of this would actually make sense. I do not believe he is an unclean spirit. And when I had the visit with the exorcist, he was not a demon. That was made clear. He was not, I was not possessed. I was not, there was nothing evil inside. But from what I was seeing, and yes, my perception was shaping this too, most likely. It's very likely that a lot of this was shaped by my perception, that it's hard to tell, like, this is who he actually is. I mean, he eventually left. He left my life after 13 years. Unclean spirits do not just simply have a conversation with you and tell you, you need to let go, this is not healthy, and then leave after like 30 minutes. I was still at work when that happened too, by the way. Spirit of infirmity. Bent body, spine, impotent, frail, lame, asthma/hay, fever, allergies, arthritis, weakness. When it comes down to unclean spirits, you could have manifestations for sure. Spirit of infirmity is an example here. Seducing spirits. Isaiah 29 and Ezekiel 13 introduced us to the word seduce as it relates to seducing spirit. In both contexts, the word seduce refers to being led astray. Led astray and down a different path, one that is most likely sexual. Pleasing to the eye, pleasing to the ear. Like the sensual touches are, the senses are touched, and as a result we are affected by that. It matters because we tend to care about what we can see, what we can hear, what we can taste, touch, all of that. That is why, like, anything sexual is like very addictive. That gets in your system. It's like, oof, you're never going to forget this. And to be fair, we are sexual beings. Like, we are wired in certain ways. So, like, some people are going to be more susceptible to this stuff than others. And I mean specifically sexual stuff. All right. What does it mean to have a haughty spirit? Someone who is haughty and arrogant and full of pride. When you're haughty, you have a big attitude and act like you're better than others. The thing is, an unclean spirit could possibly be all of that. It could include that and possibly a lot more. But it's interesting to note that it's saying that one of the deciding factors between an evil spirit and an unclean spirit is the demonic possession. I've seen 2 demon possessions in my life. And they both were very different in the sense that one person, the first person, John, I'm blanking on his last name at the moment, but John was his first name. John Hicks? John Higgs? Yeah. I saw him, I can testify the fact that he had changed, he had turned his life around and gave his life to Christ. A couple months later, back in 2003, something happened and he grew depressed and just stopped caring. Eventually, and I walked in on this, I wasn't there for the beginning, but I walked in where he was basically like rolling around on the floor and just, he was saying some stuff like no, and eventually he started foaming at the mouth, like having seizures, and he passed out. And according to others, he was actually showing signs of demon possession. That's coming from others. I walked in on that, so like that was verified. At the time, there was a man called David who was a staff member, shoulder, and he was an awesome black guy. He could speak in tongues, and he verified that, this was a demonic possession. Up till then, there was nothing ever seen like that ever. The second time was with, I believe, Barry Edwards, and I believe he was, according to other sources, some of the other people who I'm still in contact with who was at that particular location. This was part of my time when I was at Teen Challenge. I was there for New Hope Academy, which is an offshoot of Teen Challenge. And the place, unfortunately, it's shut down. This was outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania. And like I said, the place is shut down now, and I would like to go back there and see what it's like. Anyway, according to one of the members who I'm still in contact with who was there, Barry Edwards was shot and killed at some point between now and when we had graduated in 2004. Graduated and left the program. I was the 7th person to graduate. I was there for the boarding school, not the drug rehab. I do insist upon that. I was a bad kid and I needed a lot of help. And my parents needed me to realize the gravity of my situation as I was getting older. And I'm glad they went down this road, because there was a lot that happened and I learned a lot, but like, demonic possessions they're no joke. Anyway, me and this other kid, I think his name was Neil. He had blonde hair, bleached. It was dyed blonde. Him, me, and Barry Edwards were in the hallway talking, and I think others had gone into town because it was just like us three. And the lights were on too, so like we were talking, and Barry's head just kind of like dipped down. We didn't like take into account. We're like, hey, you all right? What's going on? Anyway, he like lifts up his head and he gets up and he starts growling, just like kind of like stomping around, looking around, and he's basically swearing at us to like turn off the fucking lights. And he does this for like the next 15 or 20 minutes, and we get nervous. We don't have cell phones, so we can't call. But I don't recall how others were informed, but I think we're able to get a hold of a phone and make a call and just let us know like something was happening. But what I do recall is that when staff members and all that got back, the police were involved, and Barry, he ended up going outside on the newly put down basketball court. It had been there for like probably 3 to 4 months, and he was sitting in the middle of it. So when he came to, he regained consciousness. He kept looking back at like, what, why am I here? Why am I outside? Because the last he remembers was being inside. Now, compared to John Hicks, I don't know if John Hicks is still alive. I do not know. But compared to John Hicks, Barry Edwards, he claimed to have turned his life around, and he struggled with Christianity. He struggled with, like, you know, him being worth Jesus dying. And the thing is, he could have given his life to Christ, but he still could have had like a demon in his life. There are accounts by others who are involved with witchcraft where demons are like, I don't want to say bonded, but like they're stuck with particular family members, and that could have been his case. Usually it's through like an uncle, a grandparent, an aunt, possibly even parents, where it's like you have something stuck with you. And in my case, it's not like anything was ever stuck with me because of like a grandparent or whatever. I was adopted. So for me, the geographical location over in Ramadi, where I was at in Ramadi overseas in Iraq, that hit me hard because I was there, and having something from there, possibly from there, attach itself to me for 13 years is no joke. It raises up a lot of questions, and of those is the whole thing about unclean spirit and what that looks like, what that is like, some defining factors between that, and there's a lot there. But then again, where exactly are you going to encounter this? So yeah, unclean spirit. I'm thinking, from what I understand, I'm thinking that you would have to check and see as far as who and what it responds to, what it hates, what it doesn't like, what the afflictions are, and of course, if there's any sort of spiritual presence, demonic presence, anything from your past that may actually be a part of this. Hell, hell is a very real place. I do not consider that a swear word. This stuff is serious, but like, if it's not a part of your life, it's just going to be another story. And you should never be asking for this stuff, because having it in your life, it could take years, over a decade. It could be there for the rest of your life. Like, this stuff could be permanent. And according to that last story, and it's in the previous video too, so like, oof. Actually, I shouldn't. It doesn't matter. Does not matter. It's basically in the 3-minute update. If you want to find out the link to the video that I'm talking about, it's in a 3-minute update. All right. In that last story that was presented there, the spirit, the Ifrit, when they left, it's not like they left it behind. It came with them, according to them and what they were saying. That's kind of what happened to me. When I left Iraq, I left with something else. Someone else. All right. I think that's about it. Because there's a lot that's tied in with unclean spirits. But there's probably going to be effects and all that. It's not like they're going to come along with no baggage, no issue, no problems, and it's just them. If they're an evil being and a demonic entity, they're definitely coming with something. But yeah, the deciding factor is demonic possession. More or less. All right. I will most likely probably redo this video later down the road, because unclean spirits is a broad topic when you actually look at it. Eek. Fun stuff, right? All right. Till next time.